follow through and obviously do what we're being told. My frustration comes from the fact that I know there are people out there that still believe somehow that the county closed the facility, and that's just not true. The county did not close the facility. It was a recommendation from the Burger Commission. I'm sorry, did that answer the question?
Oh, it certainly did, but at this point,
More than
with
enough.
$8 million coming from the state and an estimated almost tripling of the actual cost it will be to close it, what can the county do to cut those off?
Well, I think that's going to be extremely difficult investment, and I'm sure that's not a stretch. However, I'm not sure, you know, I've seen that figure, the $28 million figure. First thing I would say is the closure itself is outside of our control at this point. So now we have to follow through with the plan, submit our plan, try to get as much money as we can, which we've obviously secured $8 million, and try to do this as cost effectively as possible, because there are no other decisions to make at this point. So I think that there are still variable costs with respect to the closure. And that's one of the reasons that I know that the county manager, and he took some flack from this, and I'm not going to say it was necessarily justified, but he took some flack from us too, because I know that the closure plan, they implement them within 90-day, I believe 90-day time periods or parameters. And, you know, when he initially announced it, it fell at a really bad time, and a lot of people assumed that the end date for closure was a final end date, that the doors would close, and it's my understanding that that wasn't true. But getting back to the question, how do we control these variable costs and try to get down this projection, this $28 million? You do that by having an efficient and orderly closure, because a lot of those costs obviously are unemployment costs, etc. Helping find jobs for the employees that work. I know a lot of the employees have found other work, so that should help us reduce our costs. The market is really absorbed. I haven't heard any stories of anybody not finding work. In fact, I'm at the Newfane facility occasionally. My grandmother is in that facility, and I know that there are some Mountain View employees there. I have a sister-in-law who works at Oddfellows. She works with Mountain View employees, and I have not heard of any instances at this point. Now, I'm not saying that they don't exist, right. But those are some of the things that I think go, that contribute to these costs. It's a concern, and I'm going to just rely on the county manager's guidance on this and hope that we can continue to stay on top of it and keep these costs down. I'm not suggesting that it's going to be a break-even proposition. Could have been avoided if we would have been afforded the opportunity to sell that facility. So that's where my frustration comes from, because if there's an inference that we didn't plan for this, well, the reality is we didn't plan for it because it wasn't our plan. And I guess there is a, if I seem a little,
Who did come up with that cost? Because frankly, it seems enormous, but I'm not sure what it takes to close a facility, but it seems like a lot of money.
Yeah, to be candid, I don't know. I'm familiar with that figure. I don't know where it came from. I am assuming that in the very near future, I'll know where it came from, because now we're going to have to start taking a very close look at our monthly expenses and trying to, as we budget for next year, we need to know exactly what it's going to cost. I know the county manager is working on that. I didn't want to say that I didn't feel the $28 million figure was credible, just because I don't have a specific figure. So I don't want to challenge the figure. It does seem very high. Yeah. I would be surprised. I guess I can say that. I would be surprised if it costs that much. We do have $8 million. I guess let's be optimistic. We got our closure plan in. I mean, this is where, a lot of the flack came from, the fact that we had to submit our closure plan in order to be eligible for the money. And I think that's where a lot of people got the notion that somehow the county was closing the facility, because yes, we had to submit the plan once we were on the closure list. And that was to get this money, that $8 million, which we did get. So there is, well, I don't want to use the term good news. I mean, there's nothing good about how this has come about, obviously, other than the fact that we have been able to relocate at this point, most, if not all, of the residents locally. I know that there is, our experience, my personal experience was that we got our, after the closure plan was submitted, we put our names on a list, and we were,
For your grandmother?
yeah, we were in within a couple of weeks, I believe.
Mhm.
Do you,
And
go ahead.
I'm sorry, just the other part of Karen's question was the golf course, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. The golf course, remember when I was talking earlier about Day Road
Mhm.
and trying to transfer that property? And we had to go to the state and get a home rule message because it was transferred to us through the state. And that was why we had to reach an agreement, because we didn't get that. We didn't get approval from the state. We had to enter into an agreement with AFSCME, which, as you may recall, I believe the agreement guaranteed a certain level of parks employees for 10 years. And that agreement was part of the overall agreement to actually transfer that piece of land. So now you take that piece of land, which really wasn't being utilized for much of anything, and I take a look at the difficulty we had in transferring that piece, and the fact that we now have this agreement that guarantees a certain amount of jobs, and now I multiply that to the golf course, and it raises a lot of serious questions about our ability to transfer that land if we wanted to transfer it. Now, I don't really have a position necessarily on the golf course. It's my understanding that the golf course is losing money. It's also my understanding that the golf course has been making payments. Now, before I became a legislator, as you know, some tobacco monies were used for irrigation and golf carts. And the county is receiving payments from the golf course on those monies that they loaned that enterprise fund. So there are revenues coming back to the county. I wouldn't necessarily make an argument though just based on that. By saying that, I don't want it to seem as though I'm implying that I'm opposed to privatizing the golf course, because I'm not. But I think it's irresponsible though to just suggest that it can just be sold without really taking or having an understanding of what the parameters would be with respect to a transfer of that land. And that is something that I know members of my caucus have actually not only discussed, but gone to the point of either putting out there as either resolutions or as discussions in our caucus. So it's something that has been ongoing. I'm not sure where we are right now with respect to it. It's not something that is currently pending before us.
Right.
But it's, our philosophy has been to get out of.
But it's something you'd be willing to look at.
Oh, absolutely. It is something that we have been looking at. I'm certainly not opposed to it. But obviously you gotta, I wanted to talk about some of the issues, so, we have an understanding of really what the overall picture is.
Right, right.
I'm good.
All right. That's it.
Great.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Yeah.